My comparative study focused on the way cinematography highlights musical numbers in both A Hard Day's Night and across the universe. A Hard Day's Night pioneered the conventions of music videos and films, establishing the rock and roll music subgenre and subverting accepted conventions of the musical drama by documenting a portrayal of the Beatles and their filmmaking style. Across the Universe is also a musical drama film with a theatrical style similar to the live show Love, which was shown in 2006 and portrayed the Beatles' music through interpretive, circus-based artistic and athletic stage performance. Like A Hard Day's Night, the movie shows the Beatles' music through cinematography to convey the historical context behind the movie. My justification for choosing this topic is because both films' historical contexts differ dramatically, with A Hard Day's Night being made and set in 1964, at a time when French New Wave cinema was on the rise. With New Wave zeitgeist movies classics like Breathless, its avant-garde style had a clear influence on the Beatles' films, while Across the Universe is set through the 60s and made in 2007. The Beatles were one of the most influential contributions to the 60s culture, especially to youths. The Beatles helped represent the voices of ordinary and often young people. This had rarely been seen before. However, by 2007, regional accents are familiar and youth representations are commonplace on our screens, in coming-of-age movies, for example. This shows the influence the Beatles movies have had on cinema, as the themes have grown in popularity and have been seen in many movies since. I focus on these two films because they contain specific examples of the Beatles' music conveying a range of events and experiences. By focusing directly on cinematography in both film texts, we can see how the director's intentions are created through the lens of the historical period in which they were set. Cinematography is important because it is vital to the overall look and mood of the film's visual narrative, and this is key if we want to understand how the Beatles' music is represented. A Hard Day's Night is a musical comedy drama focusing on fan hysteria early in the Beatles' career. It shows a typical day in the life of the band, and we see the way they interact with the early 60s world. The Beatles at the time the movie was released had just hit America as part of what was described as the British invasion. At this time, cinema was beginning to be influenced by French New Wave and the British kitchen sink drama film movements, such as movies like John Osborne's Look Back in Anger and French films directed by Jean-Luc Godard and tributes such as Breathless. Across the Universe is a musical drama. The film uses Beatles music to represent the 60s era and the main events during that time: love, anti-war activism, self-discovery, psychedelic drug culture, free speech, sexuality, and the civil rights movement. The director of Across the Universe, Julian Taymor, never intended for the movie to highlight the similarities between 1964 and 2007. However, we begin to see similarities between the Vietnam War and the Iraq War, the Black Lives Matter movement, and the gay rights movement that reflect the 60s with modern-day comparisons. By using the Beatles songs within the movie, we can see how the events as well as the music are somehow timeless. A Hard Day's Night was born from the necessity of the director Richard Lester to work with 4 protagonists with no previous acting experience, and to achieve a high-quality film on a relatively low budget. To combat these problems, he adopted techniques being introduced in the emerging French New Wave film movement that was changing the face of cinema. The New Wave approach was perfect for A Hard Day's Night, a film designed to be an exploitative piece of commercial art possessing no real narrative. Embracing the low budget and resources he was provided, Richard Lester drew on New Wave techniques to create a film rich with style that compensated for limited substance. The style itself became the substance, and the resulting work impacted cinematography and composition in ways that still resonate today. The use of handheld cameras was used by Jean-Luc Godard in his 1960 French New Wave film Breathless. The French New Wave offered an alternative to the so-called rules of filmmaking. Their use of new, lightweight handheld cameras, their approach to street location shooting, and their innovative editing techniques, including jump cuts. We see the influence of the French New Wave throughout A Hard Day's Night, but the techniques have become widely used in cinematography since the 1960s. For example, Saving Private Ryan, the 1998 film, which achieved a brilliant use of handheld camera techniques. The cinematographer Kaminsky uses handheld camera techniques in the landing scene of Saving Private Ryan to create a similar low-budget documentary feel, similar to A Hard Day's Night. However, Saving Private Ryan shows how the shaky handheld camera can do so much more to convey a psychologically challenged film sequence. During chaotic scenes of panic, action, or urgency, the camera shakes of a handheld shot visually adds to the intensity of a moment. An example is the cinematography of the opening scene of A Hard Day's Night, filmed with a static handheld camera in front of the Beatles in action, which gives the effect of a documentary live action as the band run from their fans on the streets of Marylebone on their way to a London train station. George and Ringo inadvertently trip and fall. John looks back but doesn't stop running as the action continues to move forward. At the end of the scene, the frame fills with a blurry close-up of the fans, as Ringo, also in close-up, moves away from them and to the right behind the camera out of shot. The fans then fill the frame. the cinematographer Gilbert Taylor and his 5 operatives used handheld Arriflexes cameras to film A Hard Day's Night. Taylor had to deal with Beatlemania at its height. We were up against crowds of screaming people, he recalls. There was no proper script at that stage, and we were following the boys using 10:1 zooms on our handheld Arriflexes. We did a lot of close-up iris stop stuff on that, and it turned out to be brilliant. The accidental fall creates a sense of realism. The effect connotes the nature of the relationship between the Beatles and their fans, and the frantic atmosphere of Beatlemania. The blur at the end of the scene makes the film feel urgent and rushed and conveys a sense of social documentary. The film looks more realistic as a result, as though we were closer to the action and in the Beatles' world with them. Goddard's work on Breathless, filled with deliberate decisions to keep mistakes in the movie as a directorial intention, can be seen in Lester's use of improvisation and documentary film style. It should be said that both A Hard Day's Night and Breathless are based on true life, which gives the documentary approach a validity. Across the Universe focuses on major events of the 60s era, such as the Vietnam War, which was most effectively shown in the Strawberry Fields Forever scene. The handheld camera technique in this scene helps to create a psychological effect on the audience and shows the mental state of the characters. The scene begins with a medium close-up of Jude. Off-screen, the news plays in the background from Lucy's new TV. The reporter discusses the Vietnam War. The Vietnam conflict is often referred to as the First Television War. The film from Vietnam was flown to Tokyo for quick development and editing, and then flown on to the United States. The television war, or living room war, was beamed into regular Americans' homes. Suddenly, the war on the other side of the world was in your living room. The scene continues. Lucy stands behind a door and pushes it open to reveal Jude viewing his artwork. Tamar uses a point-of-view shot to show Jude's mental state and inner trauma, as he uses art as a way to articulate his view of Vietnam. This shot is in Lucy's point of view. We see Jude through her eyes, and the audience becomes aware of the impact the war is having on him at the same time as Lucy. By using this particular camera framing option, the point of view shot, Tamar is able to carry emotion and understanding to the viewer. Jude uses strawberries in his artwork as a symbol of war and blood. The red connotes the spilling of blood. By using this symbolic code, the previous connotations of strawberries are taken away. The love and purity is gone. The song Strawberry Fields Forever was written as a story of nostalgia about John Lennon's childhood, playing in the gardens of Strawberry Fields Children's Home. By using this song in the context that is presented in this scene, it becomes a song about blood, death, and the childlike innocence that is taken in war. Jude is a pop artist and uses his art to express himself. One thing pop art often does is focuses on materialism and thrives on the consumer boom. Artists often look at serious events and use pop art to portray them. Evidence of this is in Martha Rosler's work. The war is depicted to be right outside the woman's house as she is cleaning. This can link to the television war, in that Vietnam could be seen in American homes. In this sequence, Lucy looks from Jude to the television set. The camera gradually zooms into the TV. On the screen we see Max as a soldier in Vietnam. By using this close-up shot of the television as the newsreel is playing, as well as the point-of-view shot, the cinematography is able to convey the ramifications that the war is having on all 3 protagonists collectively, and shows the way the media was able to bring American people closer to the action of the war. The impact of the war on Max, a soldier fighting in Vietnam, and the impact the conflict is having on Jude and Lucy, the family and audiences left behind watching in America. Similarly, in A Hard Day's Night, Lester decides to film a sequence from the Can't Buy Me Love scene in John Lennon's perspective, as if he is the cameraman. We see an aerial shot from the helicopter of the Beatles when they manage to break free from the confinement of their celebrity, if only for a short while. They are portrayed running and jumping around in the playing field, accompanied by their own hit single Can't Buy Me Love. Then the shot changes to a point-of-view shot. Shot in John's perspective, we become part of the band. By using the point-of-view shot, the audience feels included in the action on screen and are enjoying the band's freedom along with them. A Hard Day's Night follows the Fab Four as they face the everyday challenges of stardom. We see them preparing for a television performance, all while Paul's mischievous grandfather stirs up trouble. Across the Universe follows a group of friends in the 60s as they face major events of the era, war, peace and romance, all set to a playlist of Beatles songs. To conclude, in both films the historical context is a defining factor in a number of film elements, including cinematography and editing. In both films, these elements are critical in order to differentiate the way the Beatles' music is represented in cinema.